Hi, my name is Samuel Sandoval. I'm a professor and an extension specialist in water resources at the University of California, Davis, and at the Division of Agriculture and Natural Resources. Today, we're going to be talking about the water conditions in California. Snow and reservoirs, and this is the part that I was mentioning that we need to take a look at both. So, what you're going to see here is a comparison of what was the conditions on snow on April 1st, and what were also the conditions of reservoirs in April 1st. So this is a combination of both. Here, what you're seeing is that these are the main reservoirs in the state, Don Pedro, Folsom, Oroville, Shasta, Trinity, Melones, San Luis, and Millerton. And what is going on here is that these reservoirs, the blue bar is how full or how empty they are. The red line is how above or below are of the average historic for that given reservoir. And the yellow squares is the size of the storage capacity, how the reservoirs are full with respect to the storage capacity. So as you can see here in this year, reservoirs were about the historic average. Reservoirs were not full, were not all the way to the top, but they were above our own historic averages. So we have full reservoirs and a snowpack that it was full. So basically, this is what happened the following year. I mean, the reservoirs were full. It looks that they were about the same historic average conditions, but in this year, we start having less snow. This was a dry year, 2012, the first year of the last decade, the beginning drought. This is the second year, and you can see that dry conditions continue here, and now reservoirs start becoming lower or below historic average. By the third year, with no water coming and reservoirs below historic average, what you can see is that for the following year, reservoirs were way below historic average, were actually half full or half empty, and still snow conditions that they didn't look because it was another dry year. This is the fourth year of the drought. And as you can see, no rain coming, no snow melt coming, and all the reservoirs were below storage. So what is going on there? Well, basically, these were very dry conditions that this is 2016. Once again, dry or just above normal conditions. Some rain, some of the reservoirs rebound, but as you can see, there were others that still were very empty. What it is coming is the wettest year on record. So there you go. So yes, snowpack, and as I mentioned, it was the most the year with the most rainfall, but not necessarily the largest snowpack. A lot of the rain actually melted. You can see that reservoirs are above historic average, and these above normal conditions and reservoirs full, they can be carried. So this water will be used for that year, and this water can be stored for next year, which is what happened in 2018, that you can see that the reservoirs didn't went that low. And in this case, we have dry conditions, so reservoirs low, dry conditions. We will expect about the same historic average by the end. This is a wet year. Average conditions, good water store for next year. So it is very likely that we will once again hit historic average conditions, and this will be the first year of the drought. Now, once we know that we're in historic averages and low or dry conditions, what it will start happening with the reservoirs is that they will start getting low. And once again, if we are below historic averages and with small snowpack, what it will happen is that we're going to have very dry conditions. And this is what is happening on these reservoirs. Sorry, they moved some of the layout. This is information from DWR, the California Department of Water Resources. And basically, you can see that here reservoirs are very low. Now, what is happening right now up to January 15 is that, yes, we have had some rains, and as you're going to see, snowpack looks good. Still, reservoirs are below the historic average or on historic average. What that means is that yes, some of the water, even though we have had very good storm events, this water is still making its way, but it's not. Reservoirs were so low, were so empty at the beginning of the last growing season in 2022 that because they were so low, even though with all this water, they are still not reaching average conditions. And we have had a very solid, almost 3 weeks, 4 weeks of rain. One key message related to snow and reservoirs is that, as we have seen in this video, we have had periods where it was wet conditions and dry reservoirs. That will help us out to carry water for 1 year. But after 1 year of carrying water, and if we're experiencing a dry or a less than average snow, we're going to start seeing reservoirs levels go down, which is here. And if dry conditions still persist, we're going to see further reservoirs down, and with low storage in reservoirs and small or less than average snow, we can see further depletion, further impact on the reservoirs with low storage. So this happened in this sequence, and it took 4 years to get to these critical conditions. In the current drought, it only took 2 years. So wet conditions, reservoirs full, and good snowpack. These will carry, even though the next year is dry, that amount will be captured, and as you can see, the effect is not felt on reservoirs. Now that we have a dry year and reservoirs on average, things will start going down. Reservoirs will start losing storage, and with a second year, a back-to-back second year on dry conditions, and now in this case, starting the year with low storage, what we're going to see is further reservoirs empty by the end of the year. So this is what happened last year in 2020 with a small amount of snowpack and reservoirs really empty. That's why we were seeing all those reservoirs and all those pictures. Right now, reservoirs are about to get average. So if we get above the historic average of the different reservoirs or almost full, and if we get a good snowpack, we will have good conditions at least for a year, maybe for 2 years. But if dry conditions resume, which they will, there is very few things in this life that are certain, and one of those that a drought is coming. So considering that dry conditions may resume, the more that we can save water, or that we should not use all the water available in reservoirs and save some of that water for carrying it over for the following years, that will help us to improve our water supply for agriculture, for cities. If we have all the water and we decide that because we have plenty of water, use all of it at once, and then next year is dry, we're going to start having or repeating the same mistakes that we did here with a good wet year, and then in 2 years we start seeing empty reservoirs. And this was the similar case here when we have one good year, and in that case it took 3 years to get to low reservoir conditions. So I don't think that it is a matter of just thinking on this year. We have to think in this and the next year to be prepared for dry conditions. Thank you.